Joining us now, Congressman, 5th District. Lots to talk about. Denver Riggleman. Denver, great to have you with us, sir.
Hey, John. Good to be here this morning.
Denver, I'm fired up today. Number one, I got in the city. I've been away for a month. I got back into the city. I had Hogan Gidley, assistant to the president, deputy press secretary, tell me on Tuesday when I told him on the air live that I was coming back to the city, had been here in a month. He said, okay, brace yourself because it's going to be unrecognizable. When I came through it and I could smell the smoke and the rubber burning from my car, and I had the windows closed and the air conditioner, the stench almost knocked you over. I drove through it. Stores burned out, things ruined, churches burned down. What's the deal here?
I think, it's completely proper to have those to peacefully protest based on something heinous that happened to George Floyd. That's the American way, and that's our freedoms and rights. But what's improper is destroying those innocents that build businesses, right? Really going against, the best way to say it is non-combatants, right? People who are just trying to live their lives and have their businesses. That's just criminal activity. And, John, I think you can separate it into three separate groups. I think the first group is you have the peaceful protesters and those Americans support. The second, though, is you have those who've weaponized politics and almost a domestic terrorism definition like Antifa and other groups that are taking advantage of this, right, in order to further an agenda that's anarchist or leftist. And then the third is you have the simple criminals, the looters, those who've taken advantage of the situation and continue to do so. So that's really the issue that we have right now. And I think Americans, we don't need to react to this emotionally or hyperbolically. We need to say, hey, here are the groups we're dealing with. Peaceful protesters, great. People that have weaponized politics, bad. And I think that is really as simple as it gets right now.
Statues being taken down, Lee statue taken down, Monument Avenue, Richmond, reaction.
You don't erase history. Listen, we can acknowledge that there's racism here, and I'm not African American, so I do not understand how awful that must be to think about what this country has done. However, we cannot erase history. Everything bad, everything good, all this complexity to U.S. history we must keep. And by the way, I'm not a fan of a symbolic gesture that doesn't actually address the problem. And I find it a bit offensive to have Governor Northam, who, we know his past, we know what he's done, right, to do this in a symbolic gesture without actually addressing what happened and doing it in a factual way. I don't think you remove or erase history for that kind of gesture because of emotion or being hyperbolic. I think we can't have both sides of the coin going crazy. We have to be honest, we have to be fact-driven, but we can't just start removing history because Governor Northam thinks that's the way to go. I think it's a bit ridiculous.
Denver Riggleman with us. Denver, I want to get to a couple more issues, then I'm going to get to your race, which is in 9 days for your renomination, which is a completely rigged sham that I'm pissed off about. But let's just wait a second on that, get to the facts. The president calling in the military to ring Washington so that we don't have what we had Sunday night with the city half burned down. That's come under fire. A lot of people criticizing him. Bob Barr. I always say Bill Barr. Bob Barr, Attorney General, said he's going to flood the zone. We've had enough. Yet we've had Secretary Esper saying that it was not a good idea, so breaks with the president, even though he's the Secretary of Defense. Isn't Esper there to serve at the pleasure of the President of the United States?
He is.
I don't recall voting for Esper. I don't even know who the guy is. I don't care. I voted for Trump. I didn't vote for Esper. Why is he still there?
Well, you see this happening everywhere. I think right now he's still there because of the situation that we have, and I'm sure there's been some words exchanged to ensure that doesn't happen again because he does serve at the pleasure of the president. And we do have precedents for this. You go back to 1992 in the LA riots. We have precedents there. This is not something that's out of character when it comes to riots. And I think what you're seeing, again, is emotion and hyperbole rather than looking at what the situation is on the ground, which has been awful, right? I mean, I was just looking at looters actually looting other looters. I mean, that's what we've gotten to right on the ground. So I think he was trying to, maybe he misspoke. Maybe he was trying to say this is a last resort. It always is a last resort. The president has said that. And the president has come out multiple times saying that, I mean, with great words about about what we need to do to heal racism in this country. And for him to do that at that time, I think just exacerbated the situation. And you've had others come out also where I think they've lost their military bearing and they don't understand the situation on the ground. And I think it's a shame.
General Mattis coming out yesterday, former Secretary of Defense, preceded Esper, blasting the president, said he was dividing the country, not good leadership. What was your reaction to that?
I don't disagree with General Mattis much, but I do on this one. And for him to say it was just a few protesters or for him to say a threat to the Constitution, that is hyperbole. You know what, General Mattis, all of us have our First Amendment rights, serving in the military. We all do that. But he doesn't hold the hero card by himself. And the fact that you say that a threat to the Constitution or just a few protesters, it's either he's ignoring what's happening on the ground or he has some other agenda. But for a general to come out and say that a threat to the Constitution, again, I have a lot of respect for General Mattis, but I think that was really beyond the pale to come out with that kind of language. And this is what I feel about it. And I think there's a lot of military people who feel that way.
Denver, what is this immediate reaction? I'm going to call them the deep staters. You've been in the military, but you're not a Washington insider. You're from the outside. But the first reaction of these Washington insiders, whether they're political generals or not, is to criticize Trump. Like, you never saw this under Obama. You never saw this under Bush or Clinton. I mean, you just didn't see it. I remember there was a general somewhere that had a few drinks one night and criticized Clinton for something, and it was kind of opaque. Really. It was pale. This was not McChrystal. This is somebody else in like '94. He blasted Clinton. They fired him the next day. I mean, you can't have that kind of insubordination. They just fired him. Done. They're sending a plane. You're out.
Right.
There's chaos when you have this. Why do people just feel they can serve in the administration, leak crap, and blast this president? Ostensibly, they're supposed to serve at every turn. Why?
I think when you fight entrenched structures that have been there forever and have worked a certain way, and a lot of times either through corruption or they're wrong, or it's people that think that it's always been this way, and you go in there and start tearing it up, people react. And why do they react? Because you're going to their way of living. They've known no other way, right? And they could know, down deep that this is wrong. That's how they make their money. That's how they get their influence. The very definition, right, of a bureaucracy. Was Ronald Reagan said the closest thing to eternal life is a bureaucratic appointment or a bureaucracy, right, or a government office. That's what you have. And when you start trying to tear that apart, people react violently, and they don't care about right or wrong. They care about their pocketbook, and they care about influence. They care about power. And once you start hitting those power structures, people will say anything or rationalize anything to protect themselves. And that's what you're seeing sometimes in these cases.
Well, Trump is a threat to the entire political swamp establishment, Denver, in Washington.
He is.
You live here during the week like me. I tell people all the time, I don't care where you're listening from, until you come here 5 days a week or 4 days a week and you understand the entrenched swamp and bureaucracy that is in this town, and the money that's made in not altogether productive ways, as you know. You just got to be here, and it's rat infested, it's swamp infested, and Trump, they're petrified. If this guy's in his second term, he's going to expose a lot of things. So is Barr. They want him out, right?
They want him out, and they'll do anything to do it. And when you have, listen, I was in the federal contracting world too, and I know that you get paid, right, based on your influence, not really based on what you're doing. If you're at the higher levels, like business development at Booz Allen, they're going to hire generals, right? They don't want ops guys like me at those highest levels. They want those connections. They want people to get along. So you get those contracts, you get paid. I'm not wired that way. And you can see what I'm fighting myself is that Americans, again, we need this coalition of the sane to step up and say we've had enough. Everybody seems to complain, and I did too. John, I complained till I was 47 years old until I got involved. And I always felt like, I just hated politics and politicians. And now, it's even worse for me. I despise a lot of the people that run for office. I think they're doing it for the wrong reasons. I'm just not attracted to this. But if people who hate politics don't get involved, we're going to have a tough time. you better look at this as service and not as a career path. Because as soon as you look at this as a career field and you look at this as a way to make money, you are immediately tainted. There is no way around it. You are immediately tainted. And that's why I'm just frustrated right now with what's going on in the world, what's going on with politics, and even what's going on in the 5th District. All of it goes back to power and control, not to service.
Let's get to your 5th District race, which is a convention. It is kind of a drop-by ballot. I don't know what it is. It's a rigged
ridiculous
thing on June 3rd. Just to outline the corruption that has gone on here. And it is, ladies and gentlemen, it's coming, right? Sometime next week, I'm going to do a press conference today that right on the air. The level of corruption that has been perpetrated in this 5th District nominating convention should make your skin crawl. It is disgusting. From the beginning to end, this process has been rigged against Denver Riggleman. Let me just tell you the final outcome, the final decree. Denver, how many square miles is your district?
10,000 square miles.
10,000 square miles. So the convention, which isn't a convention, is you drive in and drop your ballot off. You have to check in and do credentials. You drive in and drop your ballot off. The location is 5 minutes from Bob Good's house, the guy running against Denver. 5 minutes from his house, in his power base at a church parking lot or something. 5 minutes from his house. Denver, if I was at the other end of the district, how long would it take me to drive there?
Oh, the drive back and forth there, 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours.
So I got a 5 or 6 hour drive on a Saturday. Right? It's a 7-hour day to drop off a ballot. You know, it's one thing if it's 7 hours traveling to go to a convention, which is an event. There's speeches and there's coffee and you see your friends and you sit there and it's, you know, you got signs. It's kind of fun. It's an event. This isn't an event. This is, you can drive 7 hours back and forth combined, drop a ballot off, hope they accept the ballot, that there's not some technicality. Hope they accept it.
There's no credentials committee, John. There's
no credentials committee. There's no oversight.
They can throw any vote they want.
No credentials committee, no temporary chairman, no oversight by the Republican Party of Virginia, which doesn't exist, which is basically scared to death because of what happened with the Wyatt Peace race. So they've absolved their responsibility. This thing is rigged. It is the most disgusting thing. And I'm telling you, if you let this happen to Denver Riggleman, forget it. There's no party. The party no longer exists if you can let this rigged thing go on, do nothing, no oversight, no Republican Party of Virginia, which is a complete joke, no Jack Wilson. I mean, he should have 5 guys there. I mean, this thing is the most obscene abuse of power by these little fiefdoms that I've ever seen in my life. Now, my question is, we got 9 days. How do you defeat that?
Through blunt force trauma, through resources, through truth and transparency, and through fighting on every single issue. And by the way, the SEC, I got to tell you, they did expand to 30 days when they were trying to change the rules quickly. I think, John, a lot of it's you too. It's a lot of people are stepping up saying the SEC has to get involved. The appeal for this corruption comes this Saturday at the SEC, and we're feeling pretty good. The thing is that people are recognizing that the way of doing business in the GOP is absolutely extreme and corrupt. There is no other word for it. And, you know, I never thought, John, you hear it, right? Oh, this system's rigged. You're like, is it really rigged? And then when you see that there's FEC reports of committee members being paid by your challenger, right, to vote a certain way, and they're the ones voting for the convention and can vote also and being paid, you just sort of shake your head, right? You're just like, is this really the America we want to live in, this party system? So 10,000 square miles, John, right? 740,000 people, and only 0.004 of the population is going to be picking the Republican nominee in his backyard, and we're still going to win, and we're going to win handily. And when I do this, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to roll through corruption like a wildfire. This is just the beginning. I will not stop. It's not going to stop the day I win. We are going to continue to fight against these systems of conventions, which are now synonymous with corruption.
Denver, I got to tell you, this race now is bigger than Denver Riggleman. this corruption is bigger than your renomination. As much as I love you and I want to see you win, it's now taken on a bigger picture. If we sit around and let a handful of unit chairmen determine a nomination process and oust a sitting congressman for nothing, right? For absolutely nothing. In a system that is completely rigged. I mean, there's no party now. Now the party it goes into the negative, right? Now it becomes a laughingstock and a joke. And I tell you what, the reason why every 5th district delegate and state senator who has endorsed you, they won't get on the radio, they won't make a public statement. Why? They're scared to death because it could happen to them. Because now you got a handful of people controlling every elected official in the 5th district who's a Republican because they can simply knock them out. I mean, you got to think about this, ladies and gentlemen. You got a process here where you've got a Bob Good, whoever he is. I don't know the guy. If I don't know him from Adam's cat. I don't know him. Never met him. Don't care. All I know is this. You got a guy running against Denver Riggleman. The decisions are made by the unit chairman. So they go out and they hire unit chairman to work on the Bob Good campaign. So they're paid to work on his campaign to then make decisions on where the convention is, what the rules are, what time it is, where it goes, how it goes. You talk about corruption. They're buying the unit chairman to manipulate the outcome. Are you kidding me? How many times are Republicans going to let this happen and just say, well, it's the unit chairs, it's your little fiefdoms? No, they're paid by Bob Good. They're paid out of his campaign funds. Yep. Let me tell you something else. You know why? Because they're never Trumpers. This cabal, Chris Shores, I'm going to call them all out. Stay with me. This cabal, this is the core. This is the base. This is the post of the never Trumper cabal, the ones that went to Cleveland in the convention, who I fought in hand-to-hand combat with Cuccinelli, that were, throwing credentials on the floor, jumping up on chairs, screaming, trying to get Trump delegates that were duly elected ousted or change their vote or unbind them. This is the same never Trumper cabal. Bob Good, your opponent, during the primary, right up to the end, said, Trump is my 17th choice out of 17 candidates. Denver has been endorsed by Trump. So this is the never Trump cabal trying to get their guy in who is a never Trumper led by the core of the never Trumpers in Virginia. That's what this whole thing is about. They just rigged these conventions. They tried to do it with Cynthia Dunbar. They couldn't do it, who is another never Trumper. Now they're trying to do it again. The thing is sick, it's shameful, and it's got to get called out, Denver. This election that you have is bigger than you. I'm really pissed off about this because I can't believe what I'm seeing, and we're just letting it happen. And the Republican Party of Virginia is nowhere to be found. Go ahead.
Well, they got to step up this weekend. And listen, there's one uncontrollable Republican in Virginia, and you're talking to him. And I think that's what it comes down to. I will not kiss the ring. I will not pay to play. I never will. And why, John? Because this isn't my career. It just isn't. I'm gonna be able to sleep at night, win or lose. And right now I'm feeling very confident because we have run a near perfect campaign, not only to get to these voters. By the way, John, you do know they gave us wrong information too about the delegates. They mask phone numbers, they mask emails, they kick out delegates without telling us. It's just unbelievable what's allowed to happen. And that's why we have to outlaw conventions in Virginia completely. They need to go away, and we need to stop corruption, identify it where it's at. And for those who are not willing to do that, I'm not going to be your friend, right? I'm just not. If you're not going to fight corruption with me, you're for it, right? If you're silent about this, you're complicit. So it is time for us to fight. And I'm going to fight. I'll lead this fight, but I need people to come with me. And if I were to lose on the hill of corruption and being a good man, well, I'm okay with that. But I'm not going to lose. I don't lose often, John, as you know. I seem to surprise people all the time. And so I'll just keep winning and doing the best I can.
This is a disaster for any Republican out there to stand idly by and watch this. There's no oversight. These people do whatever they want. This is a sitting congressman who has been endorsed. He's been endorsed by the President of the United States. an enthusiastic endorsement. He's had Trump's back, and his opponent is a never Trumper, wouldn't even defend him during the impeachment until the end. So, you know what? Look, politics aside, this thing is totally corrupt. Denver, I'm really riled up over this. So
me too.
There's some ruling Saturday, the 6th. What is that?
That is to allow multiple locations so that we don't disenfranchise even the small number of delegates that we have, because the only way they can win is to disenfranchise as many voters as possible. That's been the key, because they know that I am unbeatable if you have a complete election cycle. I'm just unbeatable. So that's why they had to do this. It's corruption. It's power. I won't kiss the ring. I'll never pay anybody off, and that's how I'm going to run. If people don't like it, they can pound sand.
What Denver is doing is he's asked the Federal Election Commission to make a ruling that there are
the SEC, not the FEC, the SEC.
The SEC. I'm sorry.
Yes.
What is that acronym for?
The State Central Committee,
All right.
The Republican State Central Committee.
You've asked. I'm sorry. That's right. You've asked the State Central Committee to make a ruling to allow. This is all he's asking for. Allow additional voting locations. This is not everybody goes to a convention. You drop a ballot off. Additional voting locations, so people don't have to have a round trip of 7 hours to go 5 minutes from Bob Good's house, right? This is a simple thing. If the State Central doesn't have the courage to approve that, this thing's done. I mean, this whole party is a joke. I implore the State Central, at least don't make people drive 7 hours on a Saturday to put a piece of paper in a box. I mean, give me a break. This whole thing is disgusting.
It's crazy. It's insane.
It's insane. I have to give a disclaimer. I'm chairman of Make Virginia Great Again, which is a 527 political action committee. We're not speaking on the behalf of any particular candidate. We do endorse candidates, but I can talk to Denver on the air in a public domain. You can get more information. Go to makevagreatagain.com, makevagreatagain.com. I'm the chairman of that. It's a 527. And Denver and I can have any discussions we want on the air in an open format. Just to set the record straight on that, Denver, what is going on is an absolute travesty. And I tell you what, there is no Republican Party of Virginia. They have not stepped in. There's no oversight. They're absent. So they basically turned the whole thing over to the people that are running the 5th District. The whole thing is disgusting, and the whole convention thing has got to get outlawed. Denver, good luck on Saturday. People want more information on your campaign. Where do they go?
DenverForCongress.com or Rep. Riggleman on Twitter, or Denver4VA on Twitter, the number 4, right? But DenverForCongress.com will direct you to our Twitter and all of that kind of thing. So please go support in any way you can.